recall that yesterday, 22nd April 2024, I represented the force at a conference on national security and state police at a Continental Hotel, where I made expression of some opinion inadvertently attributed to the Inspector General of Police. Those expressions are my personal opinion to stimulate discussion. They do not represent the position of the IG nor the force leadership. The Inspector General of Police in due course will make the position of the force on this known.
There you have Mr. Ben Okolo there explaining his own views at that summit on the state police, basically saying no, the views that were shared were basically mine and not that of the Inspector General of Police or the police force. And we decided to bring that to your memory before we start up this conversation on state policing. But before we do that, we do have some breaking news right now. 119 inmates. So we're seeing the story here from the correctional facility in Abuja. 119 inmates have escaped from the 3,000 capacity medium security custodial center in Suleja in Niger State. And according to the deputy superintendent of corrections command public relations officer FCT commandant AS Duza, it happened last night, and this is following the rains that they say destroyed parts of the custodial facility. Recapturing mechanisms have been activated, and so far 10 of the fleeing inmates have been recaptured. So we're seeing that story right now. It's developing. We do hear that the Minister of Interior is making plans right now. He had to cancel a meeting this morning because they are on their way to that custodial facility in Suleja, Niger State. 119 inmates. That's quite a large number of people to be missing at this point in time. You know, at a time when we are trying to keep the place secure. That facility really has been the subject of a lot of conversations recently because it is very old, and a lot of these correctional facilities need to be repaired. Most of them are colonial, you know.
Some of them were built by the colonial masters. But you do know that our first guest, Mr. Shitu, talked about the role of the correctional centers in the
justice delivery.
Justice delivery. So that also needs to be considered, and in a way it also ties into this matter of state policing. Policing here, I use policing, not police. Now, it still ties into this matter of the locals, everybody being involved in this matter of security. We don't just shift it and say, hey, shift it to the other person, or it is this institution that needs to do it. It is something that we all need to be involved in. In our conversation yesterday, one of the guests talked about addressing this matter from the angle of the curriculum, included into the educational curriculum from the primary up to the tertiary institutions, so that everybody is educated as we go along. And even the National Orientation Agency getting involved as well to educate Nigerians about the matter of security. Kayla, it's not just a small thing. It's a huge thing that everybody needs to get into.
I think everyone is trying to, you know,
to buy into it. But let's get our guest in here to talk about this. Joining us to discuss this matter of state police, the conversation around the state police, is Mr. I want to get that name right, Mr. Okechukwu Nwanguma, who is the Executive Director, Rule of Law and Accountability Advocacy Center, RULAAC. He joins us virtually. Mr. Nwanguma, thank you for joining us.
Good morning. My pleasure.
Let's start off from this news that's just coming about the correctional facility in Suleja. Over 109. You may not have heard of it, but I'm coming. Over 100 inmates have escaped. I understand that the facility was affected by the rains yesterday. If you can hear me well, it sounds like you're not hearing me well.
I'm actually having challenge hearing you clearly. I'm not sure I hear you clearly.
Okay. Okay, so can you hear me now?
Hello?
Mr. Nwanguma, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you, but it's not audible enough.
Okay, let's see whether maybe Kayla will ask you that question. Let's see whether you can hear Kayla well. Kayla, ask the question.
Mr. Wanguma, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but it's not quite audible.
Okay, if there's a way that we can up his volume or maybe increase the volume on your side so you can hear us very clearly. Can you hear us a little better now?
Let me see if I can join through a different device because I sincerely can't hear you clearly.
Okay, so we'll take a moment and we'll come back to you, Mr. Wanguma. Just, we'll come back to you in a bit. Let's resolve this matter.
Okay.
So, Kayla, what we were saying earlier about what everybody needs to do, I'm sure I also would weigh in on this, the matter of security and everybody's role in ensuring security all around them. For instance, what do you do before you go to bed? How do you manage your lighting? When you're driving on the road, how secure are you, how do you say this now? Are you environmentally aware? Are you aware of your environment? Can you describe where you are at that point in time? When you see somebody, can you give a clear description of the person you're looking at? All these things about environmental awareness, security awareness, being aware of where you are, being aware of the people around you, paying attention to even the little things that go on around you. It's not a distraction. Just be a little bit more aware of what's going on around you, who's around me, what are they saying, what are they doing, what are they wearing, so that if need be, you can actually give a description or say something about your environment. How many of us will say that we are that aware?
I think the awareness of, of security is something that many Nigerians are becoming very accustomed to. With everything that's been going on, especially here in the nation's capital, there are so many mechanisms where you can report situations. People are beginning to get a little bit more aware of their environment and not just, waving through life as though there's nothing going on. But the conversation around state policing is one that, comes with a plethora of issues. We've seen, in fact, that report, I think we're going to play that report in a few minutes, I think, while we're getting Mr. Wanguma's audio to work. That issue about the problems with state policing, the issues that stop people from believing that state police can actually work, is something that needs to be ironed out. We've talked about it for a few days now, talking about, interference, talking again about, people abusing something that should be used for the benefits of the people. But you have to understand that the Nigerian people are a different set of people right now. We are people, a lot of Nigerians right now want their country to be better, want the security situation to be better in their country. So, the need for policing to be something that is free of all of this interference, is free of encumbrances, and able to provide this basic necessity for the Nigerian people is one that many Nigerians are very invested in. Would I like to work with state policing or community policing or whatever other mechanism the government wants to try? That's entirely up to them. But for now, Nigerians just really do need the state police to work. They need policing to come down to their localities. And, just so we can remind everyone of that conversation, remember there was some summit that held in the nation's capital where we're talking about, the whole conversation was about state policing. Of course, we played Mr. Ben Okolo there for you so you can understand what happened afterwards. But let's go back to that report, if we can, to give some kind of background as to how this conversation started and where we are now. So we'll be getting that report up for you at this moment.
Well, while we're getting that report ready, Kayla and NT, I like the choice of words you used. NT, Nyota, you were talking about policing, not police. I'm sure you are aware of that story that made the rounds recently somewhere in the north, I think it's Zamfara State or so, where the people in the community overpowered so-called bandits and collected some weapons and all of that from them. And, we are where we are today. So that issue of policing is quite a critical one, and not just the police. Every community have a way of protecting themselves, checkmating insecurity and all of that. But that is not to remonstrate or underscore, undermine the importance of having policing downgraded in the states. I mean, percolated, I beg your pardon, to the states and to the local governments. We had it before. What informed us collapsing it into one? We need to readdress that. We have had a second republic, we've had a third republic, now we are in a fourth republic. Now, we had it in the first republic, we collapsed it. We had a second republic and a third republic, and we didn't do anything to reverse that trend at the time. What informed it? What informed us collapsing it in the first place? Was it misused at the time? Now, all of that conversation is ongoing. Okay, if it was misused, how do we insulate it? Those are the conversations to happen, and those issues must be raised. I don't know if we now have Mr. Waguma with us now to have this conversation with us, if anyone, because at the end of the day, it's all about the rule of law. At the end of the day, it's all about whether or not we know what to do and we do the proper things. Well, Kela was trying to bring us that report, if that, just some kind of background so we know who has said and who needs to say so that we can make progress in this particular regard. Is it ready? Let's roll it now.
Former Head of State General Abdulsalami Abubakar, former President Goodluck Jonathan, federal lawmakers, security agencies, members of the diplomatic corps, traditional and religious leaders attend a one-day policy dialogue on state policing system. The event, which is organized by the House of Representatives and the Policy and Legal Advocacy Center, comes as the National Assembly prepares for another round of constitution amendment.
There are lots of people who are very, very anxious that the police be reformed, that the police be given more powers, be given more responsibility. Perhaps that the way to go might actually be to decentralize the police in a way that ensures that the decentralization of the police safeguards it from abuse.
The prospect of a state-level policy architecture, which is at the heart of this dialogue, is paramount, given the imperatives of addressing the scourge of crime, insurgency, and various forms of violence that are impacting on Nigeria's development trajectory, thereby presenting a threat to the well-being and safety of all citizens.
In the previous assembly, the state police bill was rejected by federal lawmakers who feared that state governors may abuse the system. It appears the federal legislature is shifting grounds, just as former heads of states throw their weight behind the creation of state police to address the security concerns across the country.
As we explore the models of state policing that have been successful in other nations, we must be judicious in adopting these frameworks to fit our unique Nigerian situation.
We are not going to debate, and we should not waste our time debating whether we should have state police or not. Listening to the speaker, he gave the history. Even in this country, we operated it before. Why is that the military scrapped it? Because of the abuse. And that is the area we should concentrate on.
As much as we are talking of establishing state police, we should also look into the role vis-a-vis of our royal fathers.
The current police leadership and its parent ministry, however, appear not to be in accord on the matter of state police.
I will emphasize that state police can enhance local responsiveness, improve crime prevention, and strengthen security at the grassroots level. I will recommend an institutional and legal framework that delineates the roles, responsibilities, and jurisdiction of state police forces within the broader national security architecture.
It is the submission of the leadership of the Nigerian police force that Nigeria is yet to mature and ready for the establishment of state-controlled police. This is due to the underlying reasons. One, there is no adequate resources in place for police infrastructure. Again, there is potential for abuse of power by state political leadership.
For President Bola Tinubu, who is represented by his vice, deliberations on state police must be thorough to produce workable resolutions.
The President deserves commendation for his openness and proactive stance towards the idea of reforming and decentralizing the police force. The concept of state policing is not merely a policy proposal, but a potential milestone in the evolution of our law enforcement framework.
In the last administration, 25 states delayed consideration of the constitutional amendment bills sent by the National Assembly because the National Assembly did not include the establishment of state police. Also, immediate past President Muhammadu Buhari openly rejected the idea of a state policing system. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Thank you for staying with us. Mr. Wanguma, are you there? Can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you better now.
Okay, we thank God for technology, and sometimes technology tends to do this to us.
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
so that question I asked earlier about this matter of state policing and of state police, and the fact that, for instance, the Suleja, we understand that there are some inmates that escaped from Suleja last night, and the Minister of Interior is on his way there at the moment. But if we had this matter of state police sorted, where the citizens are more aware and are part of the policing procedure around them, do you think there will be this kind of things will be reduced?
So I think that there are two ways to look at this. First of all is the argument about decentralization, and I think that there is a consensus around the need to decentralize the police. And before I even talk about that, I think there is need for clarity about
Oh, looks like technology is doing us in again. Mr. Wanguma, you're frozen if you can hear us. You know what? We would still try as much as possible to get back to Mr. Wanguma. He was going to say something about the two ways to look at this matter. I guess he was going to start out from the point of, yes, everyone's agreed about has agreed that there has to be a decentralization of the policing structure in the country. Now, the argument remains, how do we go about it? What processes need to be put in place? What institutions need to be brought in? What are the adjustments that need to be done? Honestly, Kayla, I don't think this can be done from the executive or the legislature or the judiciary, whichever way we want to look at it. It cannot be done from one side alone. It will take the entire nation for this whole thing to work.
I mean, looking at this particular breaking story from Niger State right now, so recapturing mechanisms have been put in place. If there's state police, if the community, if policing is at a community level, let's put it that way. If policing is at a community level, we will be able to, I think it'll be easier because people can note who's in their area.
Let's see, Mr. Wanguma, are you back now? You were frozen on air.
Yes, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. So let's get your submission.
Yeah. So I was trying to say that the whole argument about decentralization is valid because the police can only be effective if there is partnership. If police is in touch with the community, they serve. So, but the whole argument about state police, it has thrown up a lot of debates, and people seem to entertain some fears about state police in the way it is being presented. Because if we talk about decentralization, yes, we need to decentralize the police because it is this centralized structure of the police that has made police effectiveness, a challenge. But state police, decentralization cannot mean state police alone. There are those who have argued that at the moment, policing resources and policing authority are centralized at the headquarters. If there is a way to devolve policing authority and policing resources, funding for the police are trapped at the headquarters and don't, devolve. They don't trickle down to the local levels. So the local levels are not unable to, get resources to do what they need to do. In the absence of funds, they resort to extortion, which is what has led to these fears about what the police can do. And if you look at the reports of the various police reform committees set up by successive administrations, the reforms recommended to address police inefficiency have not been implemented at all. So, and this is where the problem lies. Whereas we agree that the police as it is not effective, there is a question as to whether state police is the answer to addressing police effectiveness.
I mean, that's a very important, point that you just raised there. The effectiveness of the police. And it's interesting that you talk of the issue of funding, especially when it comes to policing at local levels. It's very, very intensive when it comes, very intense when it comes to funding. It's very important. But I want you to be able to get your thoughts on a few of the things that people are afraid of. How, in your way of explaining this, how do you think that the interference that many people are very afraid of, the abuse of the state police, how do you think that it can be handled? In just a few seconds, if you can.
So, yes. So I was at the national dialogue that was organized by the House of Representatives, and I did. I was one of those who spoke, and I did point out the concerns that people have about the fact that many state governors, in addition to controlling executive powers, have also, also in control of, have crippled judicial and legislative authority and have privatized the local governments. Now, the state governors, many of them are not able to pay their workforce, including even pensioners. So there is this concern about at two levels. One is the fear that the state governors will use state police. If we give them state police, they will use state police as an armament to shrink the civic space. They will abuse it. Secondly, how would they fund it when they're not able to fund, when they're not able to pay salaries of workers and pensioners?
Okay.
So if you look
Mr.
at
Mr. Wanguma, we really have to go at this point in time. Do apologize for interrupting you there, but we're completely out of time. I want to thank you so much for coming in. I'm sure we'll come back to this conversation. Of course, technology didn't help us today. We'll hopefully bring you back into the studio so that we can tidy up this conversation with your submissions as well. Mr. Okechukwu Wanguma is the Executive Director of the Rule of Law and Accountability Advocacy Center, RULAAC. He joined us virtually from Lagos. Thank you so much. And that is where we would have to say thank you for letting us be a part of your morning. It's been, how do you say, the roller coaster? Well, thank you once again. I'm Neota Egbe.
Have a wonderful day ahead, everyone. I'm Kayla Magwa.
We do apologize for the interruptions, but certainly we'll be here fresh and bright tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. I'm Ayo Makinde.